It's the World Cup of World Cups, Qatar 2022, the first 8 games. Hello, welcome to the World Cup of World Cups. My name's James Cook. I am joined, as usual, by Paul Savage. Hello, Paul. How are you?
I was really good until you called me for this, because I record this through my phone. It showed me the front-facing camera, and that was the first time I've seen myself today. And I wasn't expecting that.
Yes, you are hideous, Paul.
You know when you're like the worst possible angle at an unexpected thing, and all I've done today is watch 4 football games and do some laundry. I don't feel great.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Paul, and don't worry, it's a podcast. I have got a lovely husky voice at the moment because I think I've got a cold. Or have I got World Cup fever?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, or have you got Qatar?
I might have a little bit of Qatar as well, as it's one of the symptoms of World Cup fever. So it's all kicked off on Sunday.
And for how many weeks we've been doing this podcast, where I've been like, I'm so not bothered about this tournament. I don't think it should happen. We should all boycott it. And then it started, and I'm like, yes, please. Stick it directly into my veins.
We don't want the World Cup to be in Qatar. We don't think it should be in Qatar. We are opposed to what the Qatari government stand for. Mm-hmm. We are opposed to what a lot of FIFA, turns out, they stand for as well.
Trying to sell people Budweiser? No, thank you, sir.
We do love football, and specifically the World Cup. That is why we're doing a World Cup podcast. It's not going to make me suddenly go, actually, I think the Qatari government have a few good ideas. Someone on Twitter posted that it's almost the opposite of sports washing because everyone now thinks the Qatari government and FIFA are evil.
Yeah, I had no strong opinions on Qatar till about 10 years ago when they started going for this. Knew that they were one of the few things that was spelt with a Q but not a U. That was about all I knew about Qatar.
No matter how good or bad or indifferent the games are, that doesn't change the fact that we don't want the World Cup to be in Qatar. So Qatar, as host nation, kicked off the World Cup on Sunday evening with their first World Cup game against Ecuador, who were playing an Asian opponent at a World Cup for the first time.
Yay, the bells are back.
Well, it's nearly Christmas. A game that neither Paul or I watched live.
No, because we were working together.
But I did watch the highlights, if you can call them that.
Yeah, I saw the first goal that was then ruled offside for reasons.
There was an offside in the build-up, and they can prove it with the computer graphics. So Enner Valencia scored the first disallowed goal and the first actual goal of the World Cup because he scores a penalty not long after the disallowed goal. It is the first time the opening goal at a World Cup has been a penalty.
That's fun.
Enner Valencia then scores a second goal. He is Ecuador's top scorer of all time with 37 and has scored 5 goals at World Cups so far. It is the third consecutive opening game to feature a brace.
After so many consecutive opening games that finished 0-0. So this is nice.
Can you name the other 2 players who scored braces in the last 2 World Cup opening games?
It was a man who was Russian, whose name escapes me.
Yep.
And
correct. It does.
I'm going to say Neymar.
It was Neymar was the one for Brazil. Denis Cheryshev was.
Yes.
And now Enner Valencia joins that pantheon. And Qatar are the first hosts to lose their opening match of a World Cup. Ecuador went 2-0 up, and then it just kind of stopped.
We didn't see the opening ceremony because the BBC didn't show it.
The BBC never show the World Cup opening ceremony.
Incidentally, the World Cup opening ceremony is always terrible. Yeah. The only good one ever is the 2012 Olympics and the 1996 Atlanta Olympics where Muhammad Ali, the Olympic flame. Although the one for 1992 where he did a flaming arrow, that was pretty sick.
Yeah, we're not talking about those until we do the World Cup of Olympics.
I think we should, because
how so many sports are in the Olympics, Paul. I only have a finite amount of years left on this earth.
But do you know how many more of them went on to do mad things?
Anyway, into day 2, which starts with England against Iran, which is going to be a cagey affair, isn't it? Because Iran will put 10 men behind the ball. Yep. Gareth Southgate is conservative. So, there's not going to be many goals in it.
England coming off the back of 6 games without a win.
England wins 6-2. A score that has never been achieved at the World Cup before. It is the first game of the World Cup to finish 6-2. It is the most goals in a World Cup game since...
Hungary against whoever it was in the...
Much more recent. Very famous game that had 8 goals in it.
Oh, Brazil-Germany.
That's right, the Brazil-Germany semi-final of 2014. It is England's highest scoring game since they drew 4-4 with Belgium in 1954. Jude Bellingham becomes the first player born in this century and indeed this millennium to score a World Cup goal.
Yes, the first player to be born since the release of Grand Theft Auto 2 Vice City.
That's not a significant milestone. That's not like the year 2000.
Yeah, first player to be born since Justin Timberlake's Senorita was in the chart.
He is the second teenager to score a World Cup goal for England after...
Michael Owen.
That's right, but he is the first teenager to score a headed goal for England.
He's also the first player, I believe, to score a World Cup goal, having already had one of his shirt numbers retired, because Birmingham City retired his shirt when he was sold.
We're pretty sure that's true.
If you do know, do email us, because we do want to know. We want to be correct.
World Cup of World Cups at gmail.com is our email address. So, yes, Bellingham scores the first, then Bukayo Saka scores the second, and Raheem Sterling scores the third in the longest half in World Cup history at 59 minutes, 8 seconds.
Yes, because we checked into this, and even the one where Tony Schumacher tried to kill a man with his bum and knocked out all of his teeth, that they only had it for 4 minutes because of that.
But this is obviously a new directive they have, because all the games so far are featuring loads of added time. It was the longest game not to go to extra time in World Cup history at 117 minutes, 16 seconds, which is practically extra time. And Mehdi Taremi's penalty in the 103rd minute is the latest goal in regulation time in World Cup history. England scored more goals in this game than in the 2010 and 2014 World Cups combined.
Yes, please.
And despite not scoring, Harry Kane had 2 more assists in this game than in the entire 2018 World Cup.
He's learned selflessness over the last 4 years. I believe it is the first time that all of our goal scorers have never previously scored at a World Cup.
It's the first time there have been 5 first-time goal scorers in an England game at the World Cup.
Yeah.
It's incredibly tenuous. When else is that going to ever happen? What did you make of the England game?
I thought it was fairly strong, considering how poor we've been in the Nations League and how little faith I had going into it. I couldn't tell if Iran are any good.
Well, when you bear in mind all the things that have been going on in Iran and how the players were protesting by not singing the anthem, they played like a team with other things on their minds. As soon as the first goal went in, their heads dropped. And for a large portion of the game, it was like a training exercise for England. I mean, it's not their fault that that was the team put in front of them.
Also, a couple of the goals are really something. Saka's one is a beauty.
Which one?
The first one.
I liked Raheem Sterling's goal. That's the hipster's choice of the goals in this game because of Harry Kane's no-look cross and Raheem Sterling's finish, which was like a martial arts move. It's a lot of fun to watch it and make martial arts noises as he kicks the ball. Like that.
Yeah.
Also, Marcus Rashford, who incredibly scores his goal after just coming on in like his third touch of the ball, and he manages to time it just after the stadium announcer says his name. They're running through the list of substitutions, and his is the last one, and it's like, is replaced by number 11, Marcus Rashford, and then he immediately scores, and that is cool as.
Yes.
And also, a big shout out to Callum Wilson, who played in Jack Grealish for the 6th goal.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I'd have smashed that.
The referee for England versus Iran was Rafael Klaus from Santa Barbara do Oeste in Brazil. Santa and Klaus. And funnily enough, the referee for Senegal-Netherlands, who was also from Brazil, Wilton Sampaio, was born on Christmas Day, 1981. That game, Netherlands won 2-0. Goals from Cody Gakpo, which is, of course, a nickname for cocaine and a Teletubby. Yeah, Gakpo. I have done a search to see if there was ever a World Cup player called Charlie Lala, but there isn't. The other goal scored by Davy Klassen, whose nickname is Cheese Straw because he looks like a cheese straw.
Entirely fair. People complain about footballers going route one, but sometimes it's very effective. The goalkeeper for the Netherlands is quite interesting. He was unemployed 2 years ago. He was playing second division Dutch football and was reserve keeper there. And his girlfriend suggested that he might want to retrain and get a real job. And he decided to instead make his debut at a World Cup final.
This would be Andres Noppert, the 6'8" goalkeeper.
He was going to instead join the police.
The Netherlands haven't conceded a goal at the World Cup for 462 minutes. And then we had Wales against the USA. The USA looked amazing in the first half and Wales looked terrible.
It was luring them into a true sense of security.
And they took the lead through Timothy Weah, son of...
the president of Liberia.
Yeah, George Weah's son. He's the first son of a Ballon d'Or winner to score a World Cup goal. Ooh. Because Jordi Cruyff's only goal for the Netherlands was at the Euros.
Ah, okay, fair enough.
I'm pretty sure he's the first son of a world leader to score at a World Cup as well.
Because Libya never made it to the World Cup.
In the second half, Wales bring on Kiefer Moore, who it turns out is Pele, because they suddenly are much, much better. With 8 minutes to go, Gareth Bale, MBE, wins a penalty, and then Gareth Bale, MBE, scores the penalty. He's Wales' all-time top scorer with 41 goals so far. Gareth Bale has a replica of the 17th hole of Sawgrass Golf Course in his back garden.
Wales Golf Madrid wasn't a lie.
I imagine that means like the whole course leading up to the hole.
Yeah, I've got a replica of the 17th hole, just the actual physical shape.
I've got the replica of a hole. So that was a 1-1 draw, and that was the end of day 2. And then day 3, which started this morning with Argentina against Saudi Arabia. Now, Argentina in a warm-up game beat the UAE 5-0 last week. So things look good. And after 10 minutes, they get one of those penalties that they give now for shirt tugging, where they go to VAR about 3 minutes after the incident happened.
Interestingly, for the England game, there was one where Harry Maguire was wrestled to the ground with no looking at the ball, and they didn't give that. And then they gave the softest penalty ever for shirt tugging at the end of the England game.
I think the directive came in halfway through the game. So Lionel Messi joins Pele, Uwe Seeler and Cristiano Ronaldo in the Scoring at 4 World Cups club. And then in the rest of the half, Argentina have 3 goals disallowed for offside. And it's because Saudi Arabia are playing with a high line, which is an incredibly risky tactic. But in this case, it really pays off. Because obviously, it just takes one of those goals to not be offside and you're in more trouble. But what it does, particularly against a team like Argentina, is it compresses the play and it forces Lionel Messi back. If you're playing against Lionel Messi and he's in his own half, you're winning.
As long as he stopped doing things, he can't be that effective.
In the second half, Saudi Arabia scored twice early on.
Both of them are bangers. They are absolutely amazing goals.
They are the first goals an Asian team has scored against Argentina since Park Chang-sun on the 2nd of June, 1986. It is the first time Argentina have been beaten by an Asian team at a World Cup. In fact, it is the first time Argentina have not beaten an Asian team at a World Cup. They had a 100% record before today. And people were saying it's the biggest shock in World Cup history. Technically, it isn't. Because
they're, ranked 53 in the world, Saudi Arabia?
They're ranked 51, Argentina are 3, so it's a 48 place difference. I will give you £1,000 if you can tell me what the biggest upset in World Cup history, according to the FIFA rankings, is.
It'll be when somebody beat Mexico, because Mexico are always near the top.
Nope.
South Korea beating Brazil?
No, it's not. South Korea have never beaten Brazil, so that can't be it. The biggest upset in World Cup history was in 2010 when South Africa beat France 2-1.
because South Africa were ranked 83rd in the world and France were ranked 9th, which is 74 places. But no one thinks of that game because France had already crashed out of the tournament by that point, and South Africa didn't get through anyway.
I guess that would be weird. Like, if that had been the first game of the groups rather than the last, we'd still talk about that.
But it wasn't, so we don't. The referee of the Saudi Arabia-Argentina game, Slavko Vincic, was arrested by mistake in 2020 as part of a police probe into a prostitution and drugs ring.
Hooray! He was just there to find out details of how to stop it with his refereeing powers.
He was completely cleared, did nothing wrong, but it is funny that he got arrested.
Some of the reactions on social media for the Saudi Arabia goals are great because lots of people now film themselves watching games. And there is one of a man, and it's literally 8 seconds long. So the goal goes in, and a man goes outside and sprays AK-47 fire out into the desert.
Don't try that at home, please. And then Tunisia played Denmark in one of my favourite things in football, the actually quite entertaining 0-0 draw.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Denmark have still never lost to an African team, although they came pretty close in this game.
It was only just a 0-0 because Schmeichel's save is ridiculous. The one at 43 minutes, just like it defied logic. It's sort of like and falling backwards and manages to get a good strong fist on it. It was incredible.
And then Cornelius somehow doesn't head the ball properly and it stays out.
Also, I find it really funny there's a player called Cornelius. I like it. Especially when he's playing with Delaney, because Cornelius Delaney is a hilarious combination.
The famous Irish poet Cornelius Delaney.
Yes. Ode to a Missed Header by Cornelius Delaney.
And then it's Mexico-Poland, which I was really looking forward to because it's like that group's wide open now. Come on, guys. Yeah. But also, I think they were thinking maybe we should be more cagey. Or maybe they're just both no good. It was 0-0, which means that this World Cup has now had twice as many 0-0s as there were in the 2018 World Cup.
There was a penalty that was one for shirt tugging, which was, I think, trying to expose exactly how many of a six-pack Lewandowski's got, because they pulled it all the way up. And then he took one of the weakest penalties I've ever seen.
It was. Lewandowski has never scored a World Cup goal, albeit only in 4 games. But he had a chance here, but he doesn't score the penalty. He's the first person to miss a penalty in a World Cup game since Luka Modric for Croatia against Denmark in the round of 16 in 2018. Obviously not including shootouts.
And look what happened to him.
Exactly. So expect Poland to get to the final.
We stay here first. And only here, because no one else is saying that.
And then in the final game of the day, France go behind to Australia.
Yeah, and I was so excited for this to be a shock. And I was like, because it was a really well-taken goal. And but it turned out that Australia had 15 minutes of good football in them, and they played all of them at the first 15 minutes.
I mean, I think Australia are probably the weakest team at this tournament.
Apart from Qatar.
I don't know.
Oh, that is a strong shout. Yeah.
I mean, they're never going to play each other. They don't do like a reverse second round for all the teams that have lost. It would be quite fun to do like a parallel World Cup. All the teams who have lost now play each other, and the teams that lose that stay in. Yeah, so you have the anti-final going on at the same time as the regular World Cup final between the two worst teams who keep losing. And whoever loses that gets an upside-down World Cup.
That would be brilliant for like 1998 and then 2002, where France could have been World Cup final and then World Cup anti-final, just them playing China.
So France come back. Oliver Giroud scores twice, which is great because he didn't score at all in 2018 when France won the World Cup. And he also gets to equal Thierry Henry's French goal record with 51. And it means that France are the first reigning champion to win their opening game of World Cup since Brazil in 2006. It is also the biggest ever first group game win by a reigning champion to kick off a World Cup title defence.
They do look strong as well, because they didn't look at the races and then Australia scored and then they looked a bit shonky for the next 5 minutes and they went, playing football. And then, proceeded to basically turn on the style for the next 70 minutes.
Also, Marcus Thuram comes on as a substitute, son of the world's greatest ever footballer, Lilian Thuram. So, Paul, we've seen half the teams. Who's going to win the World Cup?
If it's coming from this half, I think France.
Yeah. I confidently predicted Argentina would win the World Cup and that Iran would beat England. So I'm not going to predict anything else ever.
Yeah, you said that at 10-1 seems like free money. And it is free money for Mr. William Hill.
To be fair, I thought that an unfancied Middle Eastern team were going to beat one of the stronger teams. I just got it wrong. I just got which one. I was a day out. So we're going to pop up from time to time with these little roundups of what's been going on during the World Cup. Thank you so much to everyone who's been downloading and listening to the podcast. Please leave us a review on whatever you listen to this podcast on, please.
And also, while we're doing thank yous, a big thank you to Graham Woods, who is the designer for all of the little stickers that we put as our guests when we had guests on the podcast. A massive shout out to Graham for those. Thanks so much, mate. Really is appreciated.
He also designed the logo, so we thank him very, very much for all his work. If you want to support us and us to carry on doing this nonsense, or you just want to thank us for the work we've done so far, you can go to ko-fi.com/World Cup of World Cups. Any donation will be gratefully received. And we will return in a few days' time with another update. Until then, thanks very much for listening. I'm James Cook.
I'm Paul Savage.
Ta-ra.
Bye.